All right. Welcome, everyone. We usually get rolling about 5 after. Try and settle in. We are now into August of our summer wellness series. So appreciate all of you that have attended any of the sessions. And we will continue as we wrap up this summer wellness series during this month. We are focused on situational leadership. Situational leadership. And specifically, that has things that we will get into today, unpacking that, but then also crafting our own ideas that we want to cover as they pertain to wellness. Tonight, we'll be talking about the heart of peace. We'll be looking at restorative leadership. We'll also be looking at um, changing how we focus things, changing our why, and uh, the difference between being culturally aware and culturally responsive, and trauma informed and trauma responsive. Benefits and limitations of those terms. So we'll be looking at that this month. But tonight, we are going to focus on the heart of peace. Heart of peace. It is a concept, theory, whatever you want to call it, from a book entitled The Anatomy of Peace. And it's by the Arbinger Institute. And they have a companion book. I think it's on its fourth edition now, um, specifically on leadership. But the leadership book was an outpouring of the book, uh, The Anatomy of Peace. The Anatomy of Peace is actually, what do I want to say? The Anatomy of Peace is actually a it's a fake story. So none of the characters are real, but it uses this story of a group of parents, um, these two individuals that are from two political extremes that find themselves starting this camp together based on their understanding of how to overcome conflict, and they invite parents to bring their kids that they're troubled youth. But when the parents get there, they soon recognize that the point of the program is to help the parents. Um, and it is comical to me because many times when my organization gets called in for bullying and helping schools address bullying, many of the faculty and board believe that we are going to come in and find the bullies and do some type of training or mentoring to help them stop being bullies. And soon they find out that we don't address the students at all. Uh, we address the adults because the behavior and how we treat one another is typically passed down without us knowing. So we will get into this. Welcome to everyone that's able to join. And we'll start with a check-in. And my check-in is, what is the last great movie or book you have seen or read? Last great book or movie you have seen or read?
Extremely easy for me because I saw Deadpool. Yes. Come on. No, okay, just me.
Deadpool, I believe it's Deadpool and Wolverine is the last installment.
You are correct.
Yeah, and I know it has a very specific audience. Uh, I saw someone post that he and his wife got up and had to leave the movie, and a lot
They
of
didn't know it was rated R, did they?
yeah,
It is rated very R.
yeah, I don't, and all of the Deadpools are rated that way. It is a Disney um flick, since Disney and Marvel were all together, Marvel. And so, but this is not the first one. All of the Deadpools are rated R, and they're for a specific audience. Um, so it was interesting to me uh, that this individual would go, and then wonder why the movie was exactly what the movie said it would be. Like, I don't know. I don't know. All right, Deadpool and Wolverine. If you're just joining us, we're just checking in the latest great movie you've seen or book you've read.
Good afternoon. I'm going to say I've seen a couple, but I will go back to the most recent um, Inside Out 2. I thought was really good.
Yeah, yeah. Try not to comment on that too much, at least in public. Those are very good movies, and I've gotten emotional in both of them, and they are cartoons. But that's my truth. Everyone else can live their own. Anyone else? Last great movie you've seen or book you've read? For me, um, the last great book I've read, I try not to recommend it because it goes off into other places. So, but it is entitled "Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself." The reason why I do not recommend it is because it has a lot of ideas in there that can send people down a rabbit hole. Um, you know, I have the ability to take nuggets out, whether I believe wholeheartedly in everything the author is saying or not. And so, depending on your belief system, it does speak into a lot of different things, about manifesting and that type of stuff. But all that aside, the idea of the power of the mind and how we traditionally operate on autopilot, and just the importance of taking time and being intentional about each moment we come in contact with. I found very inspirational. All right. That is good for a check-in. So we will get into our subject. The heart of peace. Nancy says the Go Giver book. Okay. All right. Like it. Not heard of it, but I will check it out. All right. So where are we at? There we go. The heart of peace. So we're gonna we checked in already. We'll look at the situational leadership framework. We're going to talk about this thing that's in the book that I referred to, The Anatomy of Peace, from the Arbinger Institute. This thing called the influence pyramid, and the heart of peace versus the heart of war. And then we will close out. Some of the things we want to look at today, that the core principles of situational leadership, how to adapt their leadership style to meet the needs of different team members, to build and maintain effective relationships with teams, and collaboration and trust within those teams and fostering that in the environment, and how to have a heart of peace opposed to a heart of war, and looking at some specific conflict resolution strategies, as long with the understanding of how to put these things together to have a more cohesive team and a productive work environment. So as we get into this, it's also helpful to understand that this is our summer wellness series, and we have intentionally taken these ideas of fair process, diversity, and belonging. We've looked at conflict during the month of July, and for August, we're looking at situational leadership. And the reason why I chose these topics is because most of us, either volunteering or belong to a church or have a family or a professional career. Most people fall into one of those buckets, which means that we're interacting with different people. That interaction is full of ups and downs and a variety of nuance that directly impacts our wellness. And when you work in the restorative field, as I do, you are quickly exposed to the idea that wellness is far broader than just exercise and diet. Wellness is heavily, heavily influenced by our relationships. And so we decided to take time this summer to look at these more professional concepts and utilize some of these skills to hopefully help you as the participant view wellness in a different way, so that when you're looking at improving your wellness, you're not just looking at cutting out sugar, abstaining from certain foods, getting a gym membership, but also looking at how do you treat people and how do you present yourself in different places. So that's what we're looking at now. And so let's continue on. So this idea of situational leadership, this idea of understanding how to create more dynamic and responsive environment that helps your team is really what situational leadership is about. So there is a situational leadership model. Um, and like you guys to just take a look at that. I'm going to try and bring up, thought I already had it queued up. Give me one moment, please. All right. Can you see this diagram? All right. Wonderful. So when we look at the situational leadership model, you have low and high. You have directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. So take a moment to look at this model. And actually, I think I can raise it up and you can see right below it, the high task, low relationship. And where do you think you would fall uh, in some of these areas? Either how have you identified these in different areas, maybe at work or at home for yourself, for someone else? Just take a moment. If you're just joining us, we're just going through this thing called the situational leadership model. Any thoughts, comments? Is this something you've seen before, you haven't seen before?
Um, I've never seen it before, but it looks like one of the quadrants that I've seen for other things. Um, and I think I would fall somewhere between the supporting and the coaching. That would
Okay.
be my sweet spot.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it really depends on your interaction and maybe depending on what professional level you've had, but you can also look at it from a parental standpoint, from a volunteer standpoint, and what your natural interaction is. And so whether you define it as directing, coaching, supporting, or delegating, it really has to do with low relationship and high relationship. So when you think about delegating, um, when it says low task and low relationship, there are people that are driven more by the task and other people that are driven more by the relationship. So um, take it to a family, right? There are chores that you want your kids to do. Those are tasks. If you are more focused on just getting the lawn cut or the dishes put away, then how you address that, the language you speak, how you do that is going to be centered on that. Is it done? Thank you for doing it. If you're high on relationship, then you're going to consider the person, your child. Did they have long a day at school? Did you have a long day at work? Is this the right time to say it? Or are they? And so focus on relationship or focus on task. And so you can obviously put that into a work environment as well. Directing is where you are giving instruction, and that is, I'm more focused on getting the job done. I'm not so much focused on building relationships. As long as my team is productive, that's the most important thing. That's directing. That's high task, low relationship. When you look at coaching, that's where, yes, you want to get it done, but you also want to have the person take ownership of that. You want them to feel better about it. You want to empower them. Think about you could give them a fish or teach them how to fish, right? So that's coaching. That's high task and high relationship. Um, and supporting is low task and high relationship. So when you're supportive, oh, you're not feeling well, that's all right. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do it. Let me know when you feel better. The task does not matter. You are very high on relationship. And if that person does not feel well, what you want them to do or what they're assigned to do takes a back seat. And that would be supporting. And then delegating is you're not really involved. You're not focused on the task because you delegated to someone else and it's low relationship. You don't care about them or if they do it or not. You just don't want to be bothered with it. And so that's more delegating. Now, I would not take those terms and apply those terms as definitions of those words. So to delegate is there's nothing bad with delegating, but it's learning. Situational leadership model is for you to be aware of how your team members and how your uh, family, if you want to apply it to that, um, how they like to be interacted with. So it's your style and also recognizing their style as well. So if you are trying to support someone that really just wants to know the information, that's going to raise some conflicts, right? Because they just want you to tell them, this is what I need. And so I keep coming back to this family thing because I think it's, as it pertains to wellness, it's something to consider. Your children go through phases. There's an age where all they want to do is help, right? And so those are the ages where you can direct and you can coach. You might even support. And then there's a phase where they go into where supporting and delegating is their preferred model. Leave me alone. Tell me what you need me to do. I'll do it. And if I mess up, let me know and I'll do it again. Um, so this isn't about a right and wrong. It's about understanding the different areas and how that can help you. Any questions or comments on that?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I got here a little late, but um, even in the family group, depending on the task, those change because it's not the same way with every task. It's not the same way. There's some things like summertime. I find myself making a list of tasks. You get to do this, 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 and this. And there's times where there's a time limit. All right, you guys, we have an hour. Everybody, let's go now. I'm like the team leader leading out. Um, so yeah, it's you got to read the room, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. And again, as this speaks to the wellness of the team and our individual wellness, it's understanding that, as you said, the task shift, the time shifts, um, and we as people are dealing with different things on different days. And so that leads us into this idea of the heart of peace. And we'll come back to situational leadership in just a minute. But I want to share something with you that is important when we look at the influence pyramid, right? The influence pyramid. This uh, comes from the Arberger Institute as well. So what you have is the influence pyramid says that we have to improve our mindset about who we are and the people we're dealing with. And we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about a heart of peace. But it's this idea of we have behaviors and then we have a way of being. Behaviors are what people see, but what we have to look at for ourselves is what is our way of being? Do we position ourselves as a heart of peace or a heart of war? And many times we don't recognize it. Our behaviors are what we look at. The top of this pyramid is correct. And when you think about interactions with your kids, with your spouse, with your teammate, most often we focus on the things that are not working. Even if we show appreciation and all of that, our interaction has to do with correction. This is what I need you to do. This is how I need you to treat me. This is what's not working for me. This is what I prefer you're working with. Uh, and so we have to go all the way down at the bottom to say the influence pyramid says that should be at the very top. And all the work should be below that, which is building relationships. Uh, and so the stronger relationship you have, we move away from this idea of my viewpoint being right and your view and you as an obstacle in the middle of what I'm trying to get done. So how do we change our mindset in looking at this thing of the influence pyramid? My question for us is, do you find yourself in a focus on relationship mainly, or do you focus more on uh, the behavior or relationship? Where do you find yourself if you think about when you interact? And you could pick, you don't have to make it personal and pick your family or your spouse. You could do it professionally. But wherever you're comfortable with, do you find yourself more on focusing and trying to change the things that are not right, worried about things that are not working well, trying to change things that are not working well? Or do you find most of your time focusing on who you are and who are the people around you, and and just leaving it at that? Where do you find most of your focus on day to day?
Um, just to be clear, where do I find my focus to be? Okay, so I'm gonna lean on the side of self-improvement, if that's what that side is called.
Yeah, it's thinking about when you look at your world around you, the people in it, including yourself. Are you focusing on what needs to be improved? What needs to be corrected? So when you're coming in from the house, when you walk into the house, is the first thing that comes to your mind the beings that are in the house and the relationships and how they mean? Or is the first thing that comes into your mind, I got to make dinner, this isn't fixed, we need to get this right, my bills? That's the difference.
And you labeled it as what did you label it as?
Behavior and being.
Well, if I'm honest, I'm gonna say the latter then. On getting things fixed or what needs to be done.
Yeah, yeah. Appreciate you sharing that. Anyone else? Where do you think you fall? More on the behaviors, what's working or not working, what needs to be fixed, or on the being of just, hey, we're all here and that's enough.
I'm gonna say it's probably for me, it's more the task. Especially since, if I'm rushed, I have things to do, I have things to do. If there's people around not doing anything, oh, you can help me do my thing. And I start bossing people around. So I'm more task oriented. And then I can't even relax and think of the relationship, until some of those tasks are done. And then I can breathe and hi, how was your day?
Yeah, yeah. Appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure you're not alone. Anyone else? I know for me, I am much more focused on the task, um, as Anna said, and what research will show is that many of us are, and we don't recognize that. We spend most of our time focused on what's not right and what needs to be corrected. And the problem with that is we then look at that. I'll use parents as an example. We then start looking at the people around us. If you're a parent, you start looking at your child as things that they need to correct. And without knowing, your children can become things that must be corrected. And we don't look at it that way. We look at them as people that, if you ask us, do you see your children as things? No, I don't see my children as things. They're my kids. I love them. But I have to have boundaries. I want them to be productive. I don't want them to hurt themselves. But if the child doesn't see the world through your lens, then that is something that needs to be corrected. Whether they are, their sleep habits, whether they're, engaging with substances, whether they're engaging with behaviors that you never tried or you never thought of, or maybe you put them at a job and you think they should act a certain way, or if they're at school, they need to sit a certain way and do their homework a certain way. And so what happens is we start interacting with our children, or even in a marital situation. I want my spouse to treat me this way, and this needs to be corrected. They need to listen more to me. They need to help out more. They need to work more. They need to work less. They need to spend more time with the family. And so these are common things, but if we're not understanding what our being is, then what quickly happens is that the most important people around us become things that need to be corrected so that our lives can be improved. Our spouse needs to listen more. Our kids need to listen more. They need to behave a different way. They need to act a different way. And if those things were taken care of, then my life would improve. And so we have family meetings, or we have worship, or we have instruction, or we give punishment, or we give lectures, or we give counsel, all in an effort to change the behavior. And so what the influence pyramid is saying, I'll bring that back up, is that all that stuff about changing the behavior is way up at correct, at the very top. But listen and learning and teaching and communicate, like even teach and communicate, is right below that. And so it says work from the bottom up. Most time and effort should be spent at the lower levels. When you get stuck, go lower. The solution to a problem at one level of the pyramid is always below that level. So if I'm having problems correcting someone, every time I try to correct them, there is issue there. I probably need to look at what I've taught them and how I'm communicating to them. If I'm having issues with, I'm teaching and they're not learning, I'm communicating and they're not understanding, I probably need a better job of listening to them and learning from them, similar to what Anna said. One thing does not fit for everyone. So different tasks take different ways of communicating. The only way I know that is if I listen to my spouse or to my child or to my boss or subordinate and learn from where they're at and what they want and how they do that. The only way I'm going to be able to learn from them and listen to them, if I find it hard to just hear what they're saying, I got to build a better relationship. If I'm seeing my child as somebody that's just out there in the streets or ornery or stubborn, I'm really not listening or learning to them. I'm staying silent while they talk. And then when they get done, then I'm responding back with how I want to teach and communicate. And so what ways can I let it go? They didn't go to bed on time. Can I let it go and just stay up late with them and just play a game with them to just deepen the relationship? Can I do that for 1 or 2 weeks where the bedtime no longer matters? I'm just using this time because this is the time we're both at home to build a relationship. Now I can listen. Now we can talk about it. Now I can build on top of that. Most relationships have an inverted triangle. So we start with correction, you know, and then we look at teaching and communicating why we corrected. And then we listen to their response to see if they understood the teaching and communicating about the correction. And then when they get older, we expect that that can build a stronger relationship. And then when they get into that adulthood, then we want to have influence and stuff. So we have an inverted triangle. And what the heart of peace speaks to is an idea of flipping that around and making relationships stronger. And before you can do that, you have to be honest. As many of you were on here when you shared, it's like, if I'm honest, hey, I kind of focus on task. You have to be honest with yourself that that's where you're at. Then you can look at how that can shift. Any thoughts or comments on any of that?
When you pulled up that pyramid, I was thinking you can even add ages to that as my relationships went with my kids. Because right at the beginning, right, it was correct. You don't ask questions. It's for safety, right? Safety reasons. Correct. Do it. Obey. Okay. And then as they got a little older, I was able to explain a little more, right? And then as they got a little older, I started talking about consequences. And so for me, it was more like that. If we're talking about family, and right now they're teenagers on their way out off to school, and I'm like, what did I forget? What did I not teach them? What do I need? And they're learning how they call it adulting. They're learning that at this age you get bigger consequences. Let's talk about it. So I feel like as we're talking about those consequences, we're kind of able to communicate a little, I don't know, connect a little easier maybe, or they can actually kind of look at me and say, oh, that's what you meant. A little more understanding coming the other way.
Yeah, it's a good point. Appreciate you bringing that up. It is definitely, I know for me, I kind of did the inverse, and I often wonder. There are things I have been exposed to families and parents and different individuals uh, that really focus on relationship first. And I know that's foreign to me because I wasn't raised in that environment. Um, and when I was first exposed to it, there was a lot of judgment from me on how uh, that would not work. Um, you know, biblically, you got to raise your children. There's just a lot of things that from my space that you have to create boundaries, you have to correct. Um, I've even said, I'm not here to be my kid's friend. If my kids have an issue with me, but they listen to me, I'll sacrifice my relationship as long as they're not, hurting other people and all those types of things. I've said those things. And I've really had to confront those ideas uh, because when I became a dean, um, I saw a stark difference between the time and care I placed on other people's children, uh, the respect that was given, the amount of listening I did, all those types of things for other people's children, to the point where I often had better relationships with these young men and even girls on my basketball team than they had with their own families because of how I approached the relationship first. And yet we still had rules. We had handbook. You was at a school. There's things you couldn't do. Um, but I went about it differently. And that's where I first started saying, I have to shift some things um, on looking at this. The next part that I want to talk about before we let you go is this idea of a heart of peace versus a heart of war. And it really speaks to the state of being that we find ourselves in. And uh, the heart of peace is crucial because when you find yourself in leadership, it helps you see others with their own needs and perspectives. And this mindset helps to reduce conflict uh, and helps us become more compassionate with others. In the book, it it describes an interaction of a father and son, but it also brings out this idea of being right, right? This idea of being right. And the problem with being in interactions with relationships based on who's right is that it narrows your mindset from seeing where you could be mistaken. Uh, when I tell my child who did not do their chores, take out the trash, do the dishes, and I come into their room and I say, "What's wrong with you? We've talked about this before. This is disrespectful. You need to be responsible, blah, 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 blah." And I go through that whole thing. I'm right in what I'm describing. They didn't do the responsibility. That's something that they're supposed to do. They've had the conversation before. They knew it. So I'm actually right. Uh, but it doesn't take into account who they are in that moment. It doesn't leave room for the day that they had. It doesn't leave room for their emotions, their reasons, any of those types of things. So I could be mistaken on their intent and how it happened and why it happened, even though what I'm saying is right. Um, and the main difference between a heart of peace and a heart of war, the heart of war uh, has us looking at others as objects, and a heart of peace has us looking at others as beings. So whenever you're discussing with someone, uh, you're coming to a grocery store or shopping and you were waiting on the parking spot and the person cut it in front of you and parked there. Uh, if you're at a heart of war, that is a person that you're going to address. You're going to judge. They are a thing that got in your way. Um, and you're going to respond in that mindset. If you're at a heart of peace, you might think, hey, maybe they had an emergency. Maybe they didn't see me there. And so when you look at that influence pyramid and it goes down to opening up your mindset, the mindset is trying to find a heart of peace. Uh, some people say giving it a benefit of the doubt, a lack of judgment, a lack of empathy. Um, uh, so those are things that when we consider wellness um, and how our interactions with each other in situational leadership, whether you're leading your family, leading a team, leading an event, leading an effort, uh, existing with a heart of peace is going to shape how you respond to any types of conflicts that happen. The heart of peace says, there's something going on over there that I'm unaware of. And I wonder what's going on with that person that would cause them to do that. Our heart of war says, that thing right there is making my life miserable and I need to correct it. Any thoughts or comments on that? Have you seen that displayed? Have you felt that way? Has someone treated you that way before? Which side of the coin? Doesn't matter. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Hi, everybody. So for me, definitely task. It's like, I come from work. Why are the dishes still in the sink? I'm not like, oh, well, how was your day? How are you feeling? Why are the dishes still on this thing? So definitely task. And yeah, heart of war. That's actually happened to me a couple of times, and I'm like, are you for real? Did you just not see me? I have a van. It's like 2 times. Like, come on, you did see, and it's red on top of that. So I was like, you cannot miss it. So definitely that. And the good thing is that now that I'm aware of it, I can, when it's happening, I see it. So I can consciously talk myself out of it. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. Let's go around, breathe. It'll be fine. I still need to get home safely. So just being aware helps a lot for me.
Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate that. There is the right thing and the right way. Um, and so many times you can say all the right things and be in the right, but there's a right way to express that. There's a right way to go through that. And one of the best ways to kind of see it that way is putting yourself on the other side of that. When someone has misunderstood you, how did you feel? How did you respond? Those types of things. Any other thoughts or comments?
Can I add to her comment? So when we're mothers and we're giving out tasks and they're not following, and we have to come and point that out, you can also flip that around. They're not trying to have a heart of peace. I'm trying to show them how to have a heart of peace by them considering me that worked the whole day. Did I just flip it on you?
No, not at all.
Because I know it's trying to, right now we're learning it
I'm,
from me going out, but as a mother with children, we're trying to teach them that same thing. Yes, if, the tasks are going to be there, we have to do this tactfully and hopefully lovingly, but they also need to get the point across. And at the same time, we're showing them there is going to be peace and there is going to be war. Which one are you going to choose this time around? So I hear you. I hear the
yeah,
heart of
no,
peace and the heart of
that's
war, but I don't feel like I'm coming at them in war when I'm trying to get certain tasks done. So I hear Nancy. I understand where she's coming as a mom. As a mom.
yeah. And the distinction between mom or father, we all have different stories. So I've been a single parent as a dad before. So I think parenting in general has its own challenges. Uh, I do not believe that you can teach a heart of peace. So the concept between a heart of peace is a willful decision for you to have it, regardless um, of if your kids have it or not. So, or your spouse or your boss or anything else. And so the distinguisher is the idea that, um, and the book that it comes from is a made up story of um, two individuals that are politically and socially opposed, and have been for generations, and yet they uh, have become friends, and they start this group on how to help parents with troubled youth. And then the parents get frustrated because they find out that they're dealing with the parents, not the kids. And the parents are like, well, no, it's not our problem. The kids are the ones that don't listen, and I'm the parent and this and that. And so it works through using that parent-child narrative. Um, but the assertion is that we learn through relationship, and it is going to be much harder. I know I've done parenting classes before for the bully, and I always like to say that you can't make a child do anything. And I say that intentionally because I know parents are going to raise their hands, and I do it on that purposely, because there's always someone in the group that says, well, you don't know my kids and my family and the way I was raised, blah, 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 blah. And in my house, we do this, and I was raised this way, and spoilers, spare the rod, spoil the child. They give me all kinds of different responses. And what I try and explain is that, let's say you punish your kid, if they do this, you're going to take their car away, right? If they're not in by curfew, then you pay the note, whatever, they're not allowed to drive, you take their keys. And you say, so my kid, he's always in on time because he knows we'll take the car away. And it's like, you didn't make him come in on time. He chose to keep his car. So you still didn't make him. If you spank your child, the child just chooses not to get spanked. That's still their choice. So when you look at the idea of interacting and understanding that I have to present and have a heart of peace, because if I have a heart of war, then that's what I'm going to have. Correction doesn't necessarily change the heart, right? So if that was the case, all you'd have to do is correct your child once, and then they never do that again. But my experience has been, no matter what correction I do, there's still a repeat offense until the child decides, or my spouse, or my boss, or my subordinates, and just until they decide that they want to do it differently. They're tired of being punished. They're tired of being corrected. They're tired of being, and so the idea behind that is I can probably get more influence based on relationship than correction. But every situation is different. And as all of these things, they are not presented as this is the way that must be done. It is something to consider. Every family is unique. Every person and situation is different. Any thoughts or comments on what was discussed before we close out? In concluding this, the idea of adapting leadership styles, and whether you're leading your home, your family, church, a business, adapting that style, as was discussed earlier, to meet the needs of the people that are on your team enhances the relationships and the ability to get things done. When we position ourselves and lead with a heart of peace, it has the ability to build trust and reduce conflicts, and it creates more collaboration. So there's less going back and forth. There's less battles. The stronger relationship you have, the fewer battles you have, because typically the battles are coming from other things, not the task at hand. The issues that you have with your loved ones and with others, as we said earlier back in July on our conflict series, conflict is not the cause, it's the messenger. So when you find yourself battling, rarely does it have to do with the trash, the dishes, the chores. It's other things. There are other areas in the relationship that can be addressed to build a better collaborative space. What we're looking for with a heart of peace and situational leadership is to find harmony, It is very difficult to stop a war when you're continuing to attack the other person. If you just think of how wars work, if you're attacking and saying, this war will stop as long as you stop attacking us. We're going to keep attacking you until you stop attacking us. If the other side is saying the same thing, that war goes on forever. At some point, somebody has to say, I'm not going to attack you anymore. And what happens, happens. If you keep attacking me, then you'll defeat us and it'll be over. But I want this to end. And so I have to position myself as someone that is displaying peace before I ask other people to display it themselves. Any final thoughts before we close out? Any takeaways? Something that you're pondering, something that you thought of, something that you already knew that was reinforced?
Hello. So
Hello.
I like what you said about you can give punishment to the kids, and it's the child who is gonna choose to not getting punished. You can give consequences to your subordinates, and they're gonna choose to keep doing it or not. And it goes back to ourselves. Me getting upset with somebody, I'm the one who needs to choose to not get upset. It's not on the other person. It's on me to choose to do that. So yeah, to me, at the end of the day, I cannot base my happiness or my joy based on other people's reactions. It's based on how I respond to it, whether it's with a hard war or not. That's on me. And our kids learn by example. So the more we show them that heart, the more they're gonna see it. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. But to me, it just has helped me to be aware of it. And the book that I read helped me a lot. And yeah, that's what I want to share.
Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Reminds me of, I have had disagreements with my spouse before. Um, and those disagreements were passionate disagreements. And then uh, there's an apology and there's a difference in demeanor. And so what I take away is if I could end up there, what would it be like if I stayed there throughout? Like nothing changed. If you think about when you have an argument with someone and the behavior doesn't change, but yet it's kind of died down, then it's like, well, nothing changed. So I didn't have to get elevated. I could have stayed at this level throughout the entire process, and that relationship would have been stronger. Still, I'm still hurt, or I'm still frustrated, or I'm still happy, or I'm still whatever it is, the emotions are still there. Um, but just because you're right doesn't mean you're approaching things the right way. And so that's something that I take away from the Heart of Peace. Um, to your point, Nancy, I have to work at being on that regardless of the other people around me, so that when they're acting however they want to act, I can respond uh, with my truest sense of being from a peaceful nature. Anyone else? All right. We will be looking at this situational leadership all month. Uh, Next week, we'll be looking at restorative leadership and how to reconcile and do those types of things. But we thank you all for joining. We will see you the next time you're able to join. Have a good week. See you next time. Take care.